Remember back in the day when there were all those shows on TV about digging through people's old junk looking for hidden treasure? I'm talking about things like Storage Wars and Auction Hunters, American Pickers, and all those. Well, I miss those days. So I thought I would do my best to bring them back. The other day I went to pick up some winnings from an online auction in St. Catharines. And while I was on the way there, I did a bunch of thrift shopping. And I thought I would take you through the process of going through the stuff I got, and we'll figure out if I made any money or not. Alright, so yesterday I had to go to St. Catharines to pick up a bunch of stuff that I won from an online auction. And I decided on the way up there I would hit all the thrift stores along the way. So that's really the lesson of this video, is if you have to go out on a trip somewhere in order to pick up your winnings or do whatever, you always have to make it worth your while as much as you can. If you're going to be driving 50 kilometers, you might as well hit every stop along the way rather than just going all the way there and coming back. Because the more places you go, the more likely you are to find something that's worth money. So let's see if we did. First of all, we got Beach Blanket Biggies. This is a compilation album that was released in the late 1980s. They're all songs from the 50s and 60s, surfing music and stuff like that. I've had this one before, and the one I had before was sealed, so I think I got $10 for that one. This one I'll get $5 for, and it only costs $2, so that's not a bad start. We got Mad About Plaid. This was $2 also. This is a new wave kind of rock album from the late 80s, from 1988, and it's Canadian made, full Canadian content. Once upon a time I would have kept something like this thinking that I could play it on my radio show, but now I really don't have any need to keep it. When I saw this, I thought this might be a real good find. It's not that great. It's worth about $5 as well. I was hoping for more, but can't complain about that. Here's something interesting. Lily Mae and the Dixie Gospel Airs. This is a weird one. Normally I don't buy any kind of gospel records or even Christian rock and stuff like that because they just don't sell. Nobody really is interested in buying them most of the time. But sometimes you find those weird exceptions that actually can be very collectible. And one of those categories of exceptions that I look for is bluegrass, kind of early country gospel sort of stuff, because there is a following for that kind of music. That's what I was hoping this was, and I got home and listened to it, and it turns out that's exactly what it is. I couldn't find anything about this particular one on the internet, but I did find a few others by the same group. They're usually in the $15 to $25 range. This one I think is earlier than the ones that I found, so I'm calling that $25. Here is Ravi Shankar and Andre Previn's Concerto for Sitar and Orchestra. Ravi Shankar, of course, is one of the most famous artists to come out of India. Some of his records can be very collectible, some of them can be very cheap and hard to get rid of. This one is on Angel Records, so it's a major label release. Not the best kind of thing, and especially it being an album where he's really only featured alongside the orchestra and Andre Previn. It's not great. It's $5. And here we have Glass Tiger, another 80s rock album. These 80s albums can be a tough sell. There are some artists that everyone is looking for, like Michael Jackson, Kiss, all those kind of... the really big names will always sell. But when you get into the category of sort of one-hit wonders and things like that, they become a lot harder to get rid of, and a lot of them are very cheap. But in my experience, even though they don't sell for much, they do sell in the end. This one I'll get $5 for. And that was it from our first stop. $10 spent. We got quite a bit more than that in value back out of it. So the first thing that I found from our next stop was this one here, Roberta Flack, First Take. This is a classic soul album from the late 60s. It's very, very easy to sell this. I've had a few copies and they always go fast. This one's not in very good condition, but I still thought it was worth picking up for the $2 price. So I'll put that out for $5 and should get rid of it pretty quick. We have the Style Council, Internationalists. This is, of course, a British new wave type of release from the mid-80s. Another 80s album that's not worth a lot of money, but that somebody will buy it for $5. Here's an unusual find. This is Eddie Minnis. This is a Calypso album from the Bahamas. I'm not going to sell this one. This one is for me. And it even has the lyrics insert, which is a pretty rare find. These kind of Calypso albums are always tough to get hold of in the stores. It's easy to find them online, but you're going to be paying a lot of money for shipping and stuff like that. But that's worth about $5, but it's going into my collection, so that one's not going to give me any money back. And then we found this, Dick Nolan. This is a Newfoundland folk album, which is on Arc Records, which was a label out of Toronto that I used to collect at one time. They were all Canadian artists on the label. There's a lot of interesting material from them. It's very much Canadian themed content, but it got to the point that there was just too many records to collect, and most of them really aren't worth anything. For some reason I had it in my head that this was one of the more collectible albums from Dick Nolan. It isn't. It's probably only going to get me back the $2 that I spent for it. But inside of it, there was this guy's picture and this flyer for a concert at the Caroletta restaurant in Toronto. These are kind of interesting. I don't know if this is Eddie Coffey. I don't know if the picture is of Eddie Coffey or not. But if I get these framed, assuming that they go together, if I frame them together, I might get $10 out of the pictures, or I might keep it and add them to the wall of weird stuff that is growing in this room. And I moved on to another store. As I got closer to the time of pickup for the auction, I went further into St. Catharines, and I found this. Ben McPeak, the album is called Play Me. This is an RCA release, but this is from the Canadian Talent Library. And the Canadian Talent Library was a project originating in the late 60s, early 70s, that produced albums of 100% radio-friendly Canadian content. A lot of these CTL releases are collectible, but they are a tough sell because most of them are not really that interesting musically. They're only of interest to people who are trying to complete the set. This one is a bit better because this is a lounge-type jazz record, and it's all instrumental. So this is a good find. This is worth about $10. And then we have another album in the same kind of vein, Roger Nisnik and Ron Greco back to back. This is another instrumental album. It's all keyboards and percussion. And this is another Canadian production. This kind of thing, again, albums like this can be very valuable if they have the right kind of groove for sampling and things like that. This one doesn't, it would seem, because it's really not worth anything according to my research. It's about a $5 record, just like the others. And keeping that whole jazz theme going, here's another one. This is A Man and a Woman by Pat Riccio. Another ARC release. Pat Riccio was based in Toronto, I believe. A few years ago, when I first started selling records online, I had a buyer that every time I would list something by Pat Riccio, he would buy it within 24 hours. Even if it was copies of the same record over and over, I was just selling them to him all the time. And for pretty good money too. Since then, the prices for his records have fallen a bit. It's more lounge type stuff, which there was a period that stuff was really collectible. It seems like it's kind of waning now. This is about an $8 record now because it's in the shrink wrap and in good shape. But a few years ago, I would have had 20 or 25 bucks easily out of it. And then I made one more stop. And like I said earlier, you should always maximize your trips. You want to stop at as many places as possible, because the more places you go, the better your chances of finding something good. And I found something good at my last stop of the day, Infrared by Les Roger. Just looking at a record like this, when I see something that has that look, I can take a pretty educated guess that it's going to have some value. I didn't really know what kind of record this was until I got home and looked it up, but it has that look of something that would be collectible. And what it turns out to be is an electronic type of record. It's from England, from 1986. It's sort of in that synth pop kind of category, and it is a rare one. This will go for about $40 Canadian, which is not a bad return for a $2 investment. And then we move on to the stuff that I actually got from the auction, which was the whole reason that I went to St. Catharines. The total cost for all this auction stuff, it wasn't that cheap. It was around 85 bucks. But I think that there is some good potential here to get some money back out of it. So let's have a look and see, and hopefully it's good stuff. So the first lot that I won were these vintage advertising calendars, and this is just an example of one here. This is from the Dominion Life Assurance Company of Waterloo, and this one is from 1940. These advertising calendars can be very collectible. It really depends a lot though on it depends on a lot of things. It depends on the condition. Of course, they're most valuable if they have all of their calendar leaves on them. They're more valuable if they are a well-known company as opposed to just some local business, unless you're selling to locals. And the most valuable ones are ones that have a good picture. You can find ones that have cheesecake sort of, half-naked women and things like that. You can find ones that have classic cars, or generally just any picture that's actually related to the company that's being advertised, because a lot of them just have generic pictures of some kind of countryside scene or something like that. If you have something that actually has a picture of the oil can or the milk carton or whatever it might be, those are the ones that are really going to make your money. So this one here, the picture actually is related, because the little blurb on it is talking about life insurance for your baby. So the picture actually does go along with it, and it looks like this may actually have all of its leaves intact if we have a look at this. Oh, and it does. It has multiple, it actually has multiple pages. I didn't realize it was this good, but we got this guy. We got, what's going on here? We got the family, the graduate, and we have the young couple that want to go to Rio before they get too old. Wow, that's actually a really good find. I thought it was just the first page. I didn't realize that it was folded up at the bottom and that it had more pages in it. But that's probably $30, I would say. And it didn't cost that much, so we're doing pretty well. That one and the next one, I paid $14 for the two, so that's definitely going to make me back the money and then some. And the other one that I got with it for the other half of the $14 was this here, which I didn't realize until I got this one home, but this is actually a salesman sample, which is why it's just Your Retailer, My Town, Ontario. This is what they would have come around to your small business and said, you know, we can make you a bunch of these with your name. They probably would have had multiple pictures to choose from. I don't know who would want this picture on it. But and this one doesn't have any of the leaves, it just has December. I assume it would have been that way originally because there was no point in actually making a functioning calendar when it was just a sample. I've never actually seen a sample one of these. I'm not sure if that'll make it more or less valuable than it otherwise would be, but I'm gonna say I should be able to get 25 bucks for that. I would hope so anyway. And then I also won a second lot of old calendars, and for this one I only paid $5 for the lot of 3. So there might be more money to be made here actually than on those ones. This is the first one. This is Canada Permanent Mortgage Corporation from 1940. And this one does have all of its pages intact, and it has a good write-up on the company with the names of the president and other people who are important in the hierarchy. The only thing that's kind of unfortunate about this one is that the picture, of course, has nothing to do with what's being sold, although it is a pretty nice picture. I think, without getting it framed or anything, I would think I should be able to get $10 quick and easy out of that. And we have another one here that's pretty much the same story. It's the same company with a similar kind of scene, although not identical. This is by Killarney's Lakes and Dells. But this one is much earlier. This is 1926. I'm not sure if it's going to be worth a lot more because it's a few years earlier. Although, interestingly enough, this one actually has a little write-up on the back about the picture that's on the front. So, given the fact that it's a few years earlier and that it has that extra bit of paper, I would say that should go for $15. And then we have my favorite one out of those 3. And this one, this is a great graphic. This is 1928 with the flag, nice colorful picture, colorful background. It's got the hanger on the back and everything. Industrial Accident Prevention Associations. And this one, again, I'm just realizing this actually has multiple pages on it. We have some kind of scene on a ship, or maybe an oil rig or something like that. We have, oh boy, Saved from the Plague. That's an interesting illustration. And we have, well, there's a nice pretty picture. The work of Edouard Caban, a celebrated artist of the modern French school. That's really nice. I wasn't aware that this one had multiple pages either. I guess I really should look harder at this stuff before I go and make a video about it. But this is, just for that front image alone, it's got to be worth 20 bucks. It's so colorful and striking. If you put that on the wall, that's a real eye catcher. So I would say at least 20 bucks for that. So we're doing very well off this auction already. And then there was a lot of 2 books that I paid $1 for the 2 of them, and the one I wanted was this one right here. This is a reprint of an 1896 catalog of jewelry and fashions from Chicago, and it's got all the engravings and all this stuff that you could spend your money on back then. These reprint catalogs, there were a lot of these printed in the United States in the 1970s. I'm not really sure why these were so popular, but there was all kinds of them. You could get reprints of the Sears catalog. You could get general store catalogs that were aimed more at rural lifestyles. They were full of guns and self-sufficiency kind of products, all these kind of things. There was a real boom for these kind of books in the 70s for some reason. They're not worth a lot of money. It's probably only worth about $5 if I was going to sell it, which I'm not. But I really think that they're interesting to have. It's pretty cool to be able to look back at this stuff and see how it was presented back then, how much it would have cost, and think about how rich you'd be now if you had stocked up on this stuff back in 1896, if you were alive in 1896. So yeah, it's not worth a lot of money, but I bought it for myself anyway, and it only cost 50 cents, so I'm not going to complain about that. The one that I got along with it is this massive thing. This is another reprint of an old illuminated manuscript from medieval times, and it's actually life-size. These pages are reproduced exactly the size that they were. I guess you would call this a coffee table book. You'd have to have a huge coffee table for this one, though. But this was published in 1971, and it's actually made in Switzerland. This kind of thing is not really that valuable, unfortunately. It's got somebody's written inside the cover $50 from a bookstore or something like that. This would not be worth $50 today. Not to me anyway. Although it has been kept very well. But based on my research, I would price it at $10 if I was going to list it online. But I really think that the amount of time that this would sit on the internet before somebody would buy it from me locally is too long. So it's probably not going to sell at all. To be honest, it's not something that I would have bought even for 50 cents if it was on its own. I just wanted that catalog. And then the last thing that we have before we get into the main part of the show is this Tandy computerized chess. Tandy, of course, was the line of products that were sold by Radio Shack, and there was a real market back in the mid 70s into the mid 80s. For all kinds of computerized products, because it was new at the time. There was any kind of card game. You could get a handheld little computer. You could get gardening assistants. I have a little gardening thing, it's basically an early PDA. You know, you can input when you put what kind of bulbs you put in the ground and what kind of flowers they are and when. And it'll tell you when they're going to bloom, you know, and how often you need to water them and things like that. And this was advanced stuff at the time, and a chess-playing computer was also very advanced. This was sold at the auction as being mint in the open box, which I really thought, you know, if the box has been opened, I'm sure it's not literally mint. It's probably been used, and the seller just labels it mint because they see something that's in nice condition and they say it's mint. But I had a look inside, and it really is mint. It's still in the plastic wrap, so this has never been used. So this is probably worth about $30, but I have a real soft spot for these early computer products, so I'm probably not going to sell it. But if I did, I would have to have $30 as my asking price. Well, now it's time for the main event. I'm gonna crack into this crate full of records, and this is not some, you know, TV stuff. This is for real. I have not looked in this crate. I don't know what's in it beyond 5 or so that the seller showed in the pictures. So I have $35 plus tax and premium. So call it $40 invested in this crate. The crate. The handles are broken, but I could still probably get 10 bucks for it on its own because it is one of the ones that fits records in it properly. So say we got 30 bucks to get back out of these records, and I'm about to find out if it's gonna be doable or not. So right away, at the front, we're off to a bad start because we have Linda Ronstadt. Nothing wrong with Linda Ronstadt, but her records are not valuable at all. I would have to say it would go in my dollar bin at the most. Pat Benatar. Not amazing. Again, there's nothing wrong with Pat Benatar, and a lot of people enjoy that sort of music, but the records are not valuable at all. They're just not. They're not worth very much. But being that it is more of a rock album, I should be able to get $5 out of that. I hope. This is one that was in the pictures. This is the main ingredient, Musicus Maximus. This is a soul kind of album, which can be very collectible. This is not a great one, but again, it's a $5 record. And here we have an interesting one. This is Callian. This is they were a Caribbean band that were based here in Canada. So you have some reggae kind of music on here, you have some soca music, and you have some disco, funk, soul, American style. I do collect Caribbean music, but I've had this album before, and it's really not for me. But it's another $5 record. It's nothing great, but it'll sell eventually. We have, well, that's not a bad find, Booker T and the MGs. Of course, best known for Green Onions, but this is a much later release from them. This is from the late 70s. I'm really not sure on that one, but I think I could probably put that in my $10 section, and it would sell. That's not a bad find. And we have a disco single, Splendor, All Night Long. I've actually made a lot of money from 12-inch disco singles. I picked up a great collection of them a lot of years ago, and there was a lot of $20, $30, $50 records in there. This one has got a $3 price sticker on the plastic sleeve, so I'm guessing this is not a good one. But that'll go in the $5 section for sure, and somebody might buy it. Alright, let's keep it going, because this is actually turning out to be better than it looked in the pictures. When I started bidding on this, I was really only bidding for the crate, which I didn't realize was broken at the time, because these crates are worth about 25 bucks each on their own if they're intact, if they're the kind that fit records. If they're the smaller ones, they're really not worth anything. But after I realized that the crate was broken, I had a look at the records that were shown in the pictures, and I said, oh, this isn't that great. I might have just wasted a bunch of money. But it's looking good, and it continues to look good, because we have Silver Convention, which is another funk kind of record. Not an expensive one. It's about $5. That's a good band, though. We have Santa Esmeralda. Don't Let Me Be Misunderstood. This is a great record, and I mean that in terms of actually listening to it. This is one of my grandma's favorite records from when she was a DJ. This is it's a disco record. It's 16 minutes long, that title song, and it's amazing. You have to listen to this record. But in terms of value, it's not going to get me any more than $5. That's great record. That's a must-have in anybody's collection, as far as I'm concerned. This is better. This is Johnny Guitar Watson, A Real Mother for You. I have a copy of this right now in my $10 section. It hasn't sold yet, but I'm sure that it will. That's a $10 record, definitely. Another soul kind of thing, which is what I like to see. I like to see a lot of 5s and 10s. And we have another. This is Lonnie Jordan, and it says War Presents, so I'm assuming this is another funk type of thing, because that's what War were, a funk band. This is not one that I've seen before, but I'm going to say it's definitely worth at least $5. We have Genesis, Selling England by the Pound. This one, a lot of people like Genesis. There's a lot of fans. The record is not in very nice shape at all, but I think it'll still play. As long as there's no skips in it, I'll be able to put it out for $5, and I'll get that. If it was in better shape, it might be 10 or 20. Well, that's a bit of a shame, but Genesis, they're not the easiest rock band to sell. They do seem to sit around for a while, but eventually they will move, especially if it's only for $5. And we have more Linda Ronstadt, Heart Like a Wheel. That's another $1 record, unfortunately, but I am going to keep those plastic sleeves. And oh yeah, this isn't what you want to see. This is the Barcelona Symphony Orchestra, Carmen, and this is a budget label record, and it's not in very nice shape. So that really is it really is a trifecta. You know, classical, budget label, bad condition. It's not going to sell. It would go in my $1 bin, and I doubt it's even going to leave my $1 bin. This is better. Thunderball, the soundtrack from the James Bond movie on RCA Camden. That could be worth looking into, but for now I'm going to say definitely going in the $5 section, and it might be more than that once I get some research done on it. Well, we're doing all right. We're doing better than I would have expected, actually, and I think we've already made our money back. I haven't been keeping track very well in my head, but I think I should be in the clear for the $40 that this cost, which is a good thing, because this one's not going to help us get any more money. This is Spectacular Brass by the National Band of New Zealand. That's interesting, actually. I wasn't very excited when I saw that, because it's a marching band kind of thing, but it may have some value. I don't know, but for now, just based on the genre and the category that this would go into, I would have to say it's a $1 bin record. And so is this, definitely. Greatest Hits of Strauss from Stereo Gold Award, which was another budget label from Canada. This is actually in really nice condition. You don't usually find these in good shape, but the Vienna strings, it's just not. It's not a collector's record at all. So that goes in the $1 bin. It looks like we're going to keep that theme going, because we have 101 strings, which are probably one of the least collectible music groups of all time, with the exception of one record, which maybe I'll make a video about that in the future, called Astro Sounds from the year 2000, where they put the strings over a garage rock band. But this is not that, of course. This is the Soul of Mexico, the haunting romantic beauty of the sounds and song of old Mexico. Yeah, that's a $1 bin record. The deal with 101 strings is that they were supposed to be the world's first orchestra to record in stereo, which was a big deal at the time, so a lot of people bought these records, and that's why they don't have any real collector value today. String Along With Me by the Stradivari Strings. This is a rip-off of 101 Strings that was done by Design Records in the US. The Stradivari Strings, yeah, that's a $1 bin record as well. This label is Spinorama, but the parent company was Design Records, and the parent company is Premier Albums, which is even worse, because the thing with Premier Albums, what they did is they bought stock of unsold records from other labels, and they melted them down and reused the vinyl, and they melted down the whole thing, including the label. So you get these records, and I don't know if you can see this on camera, but it has this weird discoloration all around the whole thing. That's because there were bits of paper in the vinyl. So they're horrible to listen to, and they're horrible to sell as far as the dealer is concerned. That's going to go in the dollar bin. This could be more interesting. This is 101 strings with guitars. 6 great guitarists. I don't know about this one. This is not a rock kind of guitar album. These are pop songs like Yellow Bird and things like that. Yeah, it's going to go in the dollar bin. But it might be an interesting listen. We'll have to check it out. Henry Mancini. The second time around. Yeah. Henry Mancini does have some collectible records. His soundtrack of the Pink Panther is a well-known one, and there's a few others. This one, I'm going to take a guess and say that this is not necessarily one of his desirable records, although it does have quite a few of his own compositions on it. But yeah, that would go in the dollar bin. We have Melanie. Phonogenic, not just another pretty face. Oh, it's the wrong record. Well, that means I can basically forget what I was going to say then. What I was going to say about Melanie is that she was a real icon of the psychedelic folk kind of era in the late 60s. She sold a lot of records, and nowadays the records are they're not worth anything at all. Which is strange, because the vast majority of psychedelic type music is very collectible and desirable. But Melanie is just an artist that, in my experience, never seems to sell. So that would have gone in the dollar bin anyway, but it's got the wrong record inside. It's the 50 Guitars of Tommy Garrett. So that's not even worthy of the dollar bin now. That's garbage. We have Pinball Rock from K-Tel. These K-Tel records are unusual because they're very common. They sold a lot of copies of these. These were sold on TV back then. So they're common, but they sell quickly. A lot of people have fond memories of these. They grew up with them. So if I put that in the $5 section, somebody will buy it. Now we have Saturday Night Fever. This is another record that you don't want to see. There's millions of copies of this out there, and they're not valuable because it was so popular. And making this even less valuable is the fact that it's only got one record out of the 2-record set. So that, again, is garbage. It's not worth anything. Rod Stewart. Yeah, anytime you see a rock collection, there's always a few records in there that are going to be duds. Even in the best 80s, 70s, and 80s collections, there's always Rod Stewart, and Rod Stewart is the dud. Especially the greatest hits. This album is not worth anything. That is a dollar record. Here is another. This is a great album as well. Boney M. Night Flight to Venus. Another one of my grandma's favorites. I have her old copy of this. This is, if you're not familiar with Boney M, then seriously look up this record and listen to it on YouTube or something, because this is one of the greatest records that's ever been made, as far as I'm concerned. It's great. It's disco music, but if you don't like disco, you might still like this. It's not worth much. It's going to go in my $5 section. I get a lot of young kids that come to my table when I'm set up at the markets, and they say, I just bought a turntable, so tell me what records I should buy, because I don't actually know anything about records yet, so I need to know what to buy. And I'll tell them, you want some cheap stuff, you want the Platters, you want maybe some more beat up Beatles stuff that I can sell for cheap. And I'm going to say you want this Night Flight to Venus, because if you put this on, you are going to love it from beginning to end. Now here's something that you don't see a whole lot. This is a 12-inch 78, and it is intact. A lot of the time when you find these, they're broken, because 78s are extremely fragile, and the bigger they are, the more fragile they are. This is Peter Stahl's band, and this is a German title. I don't necessarily know what kind of music it's going to be. I assume it's probably in the classical kind of vein, because they usually are when you find the 12-inch ones. The sleeve is talking about marching band music, but that doesn't have anything to do with the record necessarily. Yeah, I'll have to look that one up, but I would say it should be worth at least $5. It's an unusual find. We have Jan and Dean, Fillet of Soul, and it actually, now I have to check out the record, make sure they're the right ones. This is the right record. Jan and Dean are collectible. They're not extremely valuable. This is going to be a $5 record, but they are one of those famous groups that have retained their appeal. So that'll go in the $5 section. And we're almost at the end of this crate, but I'm hoping there might be a few more gems. There's Sister Sledge, We Are Family, and that is a bit of a gem. It's in really nice condition, actually. This is not a really valuable album, but because it's such a hit song that people still know about today, I think I can get $10 out of that, especially with it being in nice shape. We have Xavier Cugat, Bread, Love, and Cha Cha Cha. Oh, this is beat up. This is really beat up. Some of these earlier records, I mean, this looks like a late 50s pressing with those red Columbia labels, and I wouldn't be handling it like this if it wasn't so badly damaged. But these early ones can be valuable even if they're not really desirable artists, if they're in good condition, simply because a lot of them don't survive in nice shape. But with that being as beat up as it is, that I can't get any more than $1 out of that, definitely. This is different. We have Walt Disney Presents the Story of Hector. I'm assuming this was from a TV series, and yeah, it was, NBC TV. This is pretty badly beat up again, though, which is unfortunate because anything Disney is always collectible. Not necessarily extremely valuable, but always collectible. I'm going to say that'll go in the $5 section. It probably could have been worth a lot more if it were in better shape. We have the Brothers-in-Law, a Canadian group, folk parody kind of group. Some people like that kind of thing. I really don't have much of a use for it. It's no more than $1 record anyway, even if it is your taste. Herb Alpert, another name that you don't want to see unless it's Whipped Cream and Other Delights, because you can always sell that record. But this is... there's nothing wrong with Herb Alpert. Again, most of these albums that aren't worth much, the reason that they're not valuable is because they're very common. The reason that they're common is because they sold a lot of copies. A lot of people liked it. But it just doesn't really... they don't hold their value. So, unfortunately, that's going straight to the dollar bin. And so is this, most definitely. Sing Along... Oh, it's broken. So that's actually that's a garbage record. I had to take a little break there because my camera died, but what I was saying about the Connie Francis record is that it was a huge seller back in the day, so it's that's why it's not worth anything today. But yeah, as I said, it's broken, and that's going in the garbage. So the last thing that remains in this crate is an album of 78s, and these can be really hit or miss. You have some 78s can be worth a fortune, most of them are not worth anything at all. And this looks like it's going to be the latter. Well, that's a bad start because it's broken. We have... that one's not broken. Well, it's Stan Kenton. It's jazz. It's not worth anything, really. There's another Stan Kenton. Stan Kenton. These actually look like they might all be from Stan Kenton. They are. Yeah, every single one of them. Well, they're from, they're on Capitol Records. They're from the 50s, which is one of the... no, it's another broken one. Which is one of the worst eras of 78s in terms of collectability. This one's got a broken edge as well. I don't even know if most of these are going to be able to be sold. I can't sell them if they've got cracks. Looks like we've got one nice one here. That's the thing with 78s. A lot of the time when you find them, they're cracked or they're broken entirely, and there's nothing you can do about that. Obviously, when they break, they're broken. The ones that are intact here are actually in really nice condition. They're not as beat up as 78s often are. Yeah, they are in nice shape, aside from the few, but these might be worth $1 each, so call that another $7, I think, and that's it. Well, that was a pretty good outing. The crate full of records wasn't as good as I was hoping, but I should make a nice profit on it anyway. And sometimes it happens, you know, it's all about the thrill of the hunt. You never know what you're going to find. You can't win every time, but overall, I think I won.